Okay, so today I have the pleasure of speaking with world-renowned vocal coach Judy Rodman. Judy, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you very much. Glad to be with you today.
Thank you. Glad to have you. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
My background, I've been singing professionally for over 40 years, which kind of tells you my age a little bit.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean anything.
I started really young. But no, I started when I was 17 doing jingles. Okay. And, I'd sung before that, just, since I was 2, I guess. But doing jingles is where my real professional start happened. And then I got into, of course, in a cover band in Memphis, Tennessee. Okay. And we did all kinds of top 40 stuff. And so I got to dissect a lot of songs, which became really a good learning curve for me. That plus the jingle mill, which taught me to sing with very surgical precision, okay. And I had to figure out how to protect my voice somewhat because I was singing jingles from, I think it was 8:30 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon, and then going to my club gig, which was like 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock in the morning or something ridiculous. So that was when I was young and foolish and didn't think I could kill my voice. But then I got sick when my son was born. Oh, and wow. The reason I'm saying this is it has a lot to do with me as a teacher, because long story short, was in the hospital like 3 months. Wow. And I was in intensive care for 7 weeks and was on a ventilator for a while. Oh my so God. The endotracheal tube caused damage between, my vocal cords, and they thought it was permanent scar tissue. God. Now, you got to keep in mind, I was a session singer, recording session singer for a living with my family and everything, so that was a really scary time. And it really took about 2 years to get well. But I got all of my voice and then some back with 2 things. One, kind of teaching myself using some Italian art songs I'd learned in college and getting my head voice going again. And then also getting with a professional coach in Nashville who also dealt a lot with, people that had damaged voices. And he showed me how to stop guarding. And then we built my voice back. And then I had a #1 record, a couple of years after that. Mm-hmm. So I know the value of really good vocal coaching. And then, I had an artist career and as things go, that had some success, and then, won Academy of Country Music award and did some national touring, and it was all in Tonight Show and Farm Aid, and it was all great fun. Mm-hmm. But then that just overnight just disappeared. The music business was changing so fast, and my record label went under, and so I was left with nothing to do but songwrite. So I'd been writing songs. So in songwriting, I became really a producer, because I produced a lot of my demos, and I learned a lot that way. You have no idea how sometimes the very worst things that can happen to you turn out to be extremely wonderful learning curves and helps you in what you're going to do later. So then the songwriting thing, I had a #1 song that Leanne Rimes cut called One Way Ticket.
I remember. I love that song.
Thank you. And so everything was going well then, and then things stopped going so well with songwriting. Mm-hmm. So I kind of thought to myself, okay, what can I do? And somebody asked me how to hit a high note. This person was a friend of mine that I'd written with at Warner Chapel. Mm-hmm. And she was on the road with Leonard Skinner. And she asked me, I'm thinking, what do you think I know? But she had learned, because I've been directing people in the studio for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I've been I would call her for sessions. And, she saw me work with people in the studio, and she knew that I had some kind of gifting in that way. And so she's the reason that I started teaching. So anyway, I started teaching, and little by little found what worked, why things work the way they do for me professionally, mm-hmm. and for the other voices besides me professionally. And somehow, it's just kind of a God thing. I mean, I got the information I needed when I needed it, in through books from other teachers or my chiropractor or my doctor or some, just talking about the voice and learning about the voice and starting to work with students and watching what worked with them and all. And I developed my method of teaching, which I call Power Path and Performance, which is based on the cornerstones of breath, the power of the breath, the voice path through an open throat instead of tight throat, and then performance, which is physical and psychological aspects of communication. And that I found that that's not just a logical sorting of vocal concepts, but it's synergistic, so that if you get one thing wrong in one area or right, it tends to affect the other two. And so that it's been wildly successful at helping people maximize their voices, and also at helping people avoid strain, and even helping people recover from damage.
Oh, wow.
So that's pretty much us. And now I'm back to singing. Like last night, I've got my own group again, Judy Rodman and Six Play. My husband and I started a band, so it's full circle, and I'm back doing research for my students on stage.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of your band, how would you describe your voice?
I have a strong voice. I've always had a strong voice, but I've learned how to make it strong and yet healthy.
Okay.
So it's kind of I call it an Americana. My hits were in country, but it's kind of hard to know what country is these days.
That's
and
true.
So what I do is just what my heart loves, and I love R&B from my Memphis roots, and I love like Sarah Bareilles. It's a smart songwriting, and so we do kind of a combination of blues and sort of country and kind of rock a little bit, and smart songwriting, real smart songwriting. So it's very groove based and really good song based, if that makes sense. I think that my band appeals to the baby boomers, as we call ourselves, who remember like the Eagles and the James Taylor and Joe Walsh, that kind of thing, and Gladys Knight, and that kind of thing. So
Knight.
I got to open for her in Vegas. I was actually working with a band that was opening for her, and got to see her live, and she's got the most vocal control. I don't think I've ever seen a singer sing with more vocal control than she does. She's amazing.
Wow, that's amazing. So basically, you appeal to anyone who knows anything about music, actually. Not just
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, totally.
Anybody that really loves great songs and great grooves. I mean, I'm not all people. I'm not punk rock. I'm not metal. I'm not heavy rock. But that element that loves those, really songs and is into music well played and well sung.
Right. You spoke about smart songwriting. I was just curious, are you a spontaneous songwriter, or like are you specifically setting aside certain time to be like, okay, I'm going to write a song right now?
Both and all of the above. I have written for decades now, in different with different publishers, and Warner Chappell to MCA to Chrysalis to now my own publishing company, Favorable Wind Songs. And I what I do is sometimes I start with just hearing a riff on my piano or from a guitar player, and asking myself what that riff is saying, or I'll come up with the first line, or my co-writer comes up with the first line, or we'll have some kind of idea that's worth writing about, which is the most important thing. And so I come from all different places to start songs. I love writing that way, and I really like writing from scratch, where just the spirit in the room, and some kind of truth that we know as co-writers, if I'm co-writing, that's what we write from.
Oh wow!
And from great riffs or great melodies.
Okay, that sounds good. What is I'm just curious what your overall vocal routine is.
My own personal
Your own, yeah.
warm up. You know what's in my personal warm up is pretty much what I teach my students, except I don't teach classical voice because I don't have that extended repertoire, for classical, but because I got my voice back with the Italian songs, and it's so good for me to sing in head voice, to kind of warm that part of my voice up. I usually do my vocal warm-ups, which starts with the typical lip trills and tongue trills and scales, but always pulling. With my method, I call it pulling. And then, starting in an easy range and then extending from there. The typical thing, doing some, I love doing staccato exercises, breath exercises to really get my breath pressure off my vocal cords.
Okay.
Very important. And then some, jaw exercises, yaw, those the kind of things to loosen up my articulation. And the bubble is really wonderful for me. Because it gets me out of my throat and into the outside, into my voice path coming from the outside. I just do anything to get my voice off my throat or out of my throat.
Okay, awesome. What are some key tips for vocal health and stamina?
Typical what?
Sorry, what are some key tips for vocal health and stamina?
Vocal health and stamina. Some non-negotiable. With everybody, everybody has a little different routines. I mean, I know somebody that eats potato chips at the mic when they're doing the vocals because it makes they feel the grease. I don't know, making the voice feel better. I mean, people have superstitions and stuff like that.
Okay.
But there are some things that are true for everybody. And one biggie is sleep. You have to get some rest. I'm reminded of that every time I do a gig. I cannot do my full contingent of vocal exercises or vocal students and then go do a 90-minute gig. So, rest is so important, and sleep. The other thing that's so important is hydration. The vocal cords just do not work without being hydrated, and you need to start early with the hydration.
Okay.
The other thing is be sure to warm up and warm down after a particularly long gig. And don't eat anything that causes mucus buildup.
Okay.
And that's different things for different people. But eating simply and making sure we have protein for some good. We need to have good breath support, and we need energy for that. Real energy for singing should come from the same place you would kickbox. Not from the throat, but from the haunches, as they say. The pelvic floor, that low center of power.
Okay.
So that requires energy, rest, hydration, all those things.
Okay. How does an artist know that they're damaging their voice? What are some warning signs?
A really big warning sign is when you lose the upper end of your range. When you notice that you can't sing in head voice at all, or you can't sing in head voice as high as you normally can, or falsetto for guys, the voice won't thin out enough. That's the first danger sign. Second danger sign is that you cannot not sing breathy. If you sing breathy for effect, for something, that's different. But if you can't get the breathiness out of your voice, that's the second reason I would send you to the voice clinic to get scoped.
Okay. So like breathy could you possibly give an example? Like of singing breathy?
Yes, like that.
Okay, like that. Okay. So like a mousy whisper kind of for your voice. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. That means your cords are not closing properly, or not able to, and that might be because the edges are irritated, or it might be because there's a little bump there caused by a node or a polyp.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so those are big, and also if you can't execute your vocal licks as easily, then something is interfering with the free movement of your vocal cords.
Okay. How important are voice lessons and ongoing vocal training to an artist's career?
Well, I think that if you would ask a professional athlete how important it is to stay connected with a coach, they would pretty much say, duh, you know?
Okay, yeah.
I mean, doing it seriously to become a professional singer. But if you're out in any, regular singing regularly, even in church as a soloist or something like that, to me, if you don't have a vocal coach at least that you can touch base with off and on or between tours, you're crazy.
Right. Which
yeah,
totally
because
makes sense.
things tend to can creep in on a long tour or something like that. Maybe you don't have a very good night, or you're tired and you have to sing that night, and it doesn't go so well. So what you do is you start pushing harder, and then that makes it harder than ever to sing. So what do? You push harder than that the next night because it's not working, and you're scared to death, and you start guarding, and everything starts to be a vicious cycle the wrong way. Right. So you need to touch base with a vocal coach, your vocal coach that hopefully you've established a rapport with, and done some training with before you get out there, so that you can touch base with her, maybe schedule a Skype lesson real quick, and get that cycle going back the right way. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I've spoken to a few artists already, and I find that with the vocal warm-ups, warming up their voice, like it varies. A lot of people don't do it regularly. So I was wondering how important it is for people to warm up and why.
That's a very good question. And here's the thing. If you don't know how to do vocal exercises, you can hurt yourself, and the warm-up can turn into a tighten-up.
Oh, wow.
So some people that don't, I always say, if you don't know how to do them properly, don't do them. Okay. And instead, just maybe lightly warm up with an easy song or a nice jazz song, or Somewhere Over the Rainbow, or something that kind of just is very lilting and bell-like. Start with that, and then start singing harder songs. But if you know how, with right form, to warm up, then you should do it before every professional engagement. And as far as how long, if you're touring regularly, if you're singing regularly a lot, then you wouldn't need to warm up, but more, maybe 5 or 10 minutes even. If you're not touring regularly, or you're singing kind of sporadically, then you would need to warm up more like 15 or 20 minutes. If you have any vocal swelling, like maybe you're puffy, it's early morning and you've got to do the Today Show, you might need to warm up longer. Maybe you're recovering from a cold or something like that. You might need to pump the interstitial fluid out of your cords more like 45 minutes. Okay. But I would not warm up that long on a normal basis, because you don't want to tire your voice out before you start. It's just according to the condition of your voice.
Okay. Wow, that's really interesting, because actually I was surprised when people would be like, oh, I don't regularly warm up, or I just, the warm-up is I'm talking all day and then I have to do a show. That's my warm-up. But it's really interesting to find that if you don't know how, it's probably in your best interest not to warm up in the first place.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can't tell you how many people have actually stressed their voice out with warm-ups that they didn't know how to do properly. Another biggie is the talking. If you don't know how to pull your speaking voice off the gravel and talk, from above your throat, like I'm doing right now, from my eyes and my mask rather than my throat. If you don't know how to do that, then talking will be the most vocal abuse that you can do. Wow. And the way you can tell whether or not, in fact, that's why I work with speakers and teachers and ministers and business people who talk a lot. For number one, so that they communicate better with better tone, but number two, so that they don't trash their voices, with their speaking voices. The way you can tell is at the end of talking for a while, if your voice feels fatigued. It shouldn't.
Okay. That totally makes sense. It shouldn't. Wow. That's so interesting that even just talking, you have to, there's a right and a wrong way to actually do that. That's crazy.
Yes.
What are some of maybe common mistakes you find that that lead to vocal cord injury?
Some common mistakes are anything that you do to move your head forward, like when you're playing guitar or piano, and you cradle your guitar or you lean over your piano and your head goes forward. You can hear my voice change right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. What I did is I thinned out my throat channel, and I also let my rib cage collapse a little bit, which gave me my diaphragm too much slack, and I lost control of my breath. So you lose control of your diaphragm. The only way you can control your diaphragm is to widen your rib cage. So when your head goes forward, everything goes wrong. And if your head does go forward, if you lean forward for effect in performance, you need to do that in such a way that you're leaning from the hips rather than from the middle of your torso, so that your rib cage stays open.
Okay.
And your head, and so a common mistake is when the head is forward. I'll always say balance your head on your tailbone.
Okay.
Like a ball on a stick, and then you're opening your throat more, and you're opening your rib cage, and that's a much more healthy way to send sound through. Another common mistake is singing without your eyes.
Okay.
Especially that happens in the studio, or singing, not knowing who you're singing to.
Oh, okay.
Most of the time, if I ask the question, who are you supposed to be singing to when you perform, the number one answer is to the audience.
Right.
And then I say, okay, like if you're Taylor Swift and you're singing Mean, is that to the audience? And then they get it. Oh, no.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so, you really have to have an acting mentality, like get the response that you want with the tone of voice that you're using. And you're going to be using your eyes then. You'll find that if you use your eyes, the ceiling of your voice opens up. Like if you raise your eyebrows, your nose opens up.
Wow.
And people sing with no eyes, with like poker face. And that's really dangerous for the voice. And you sound like a poker face numb person. So the way to use your face like you're really communicating to the heart the lyric is to.
Okay.
And then you'll find your voice feels better, and it also communicates better.
Okay. Wow. That's amazing. What are some common misconceptions maybe that people make about the voice? I guess in terms of how we maybe misuse it without actually really knowing that we are.
Okay, one way is vocal fry, is that hitting the gravel thing. Okay, it's vocal fry, and it's an epidemic, especially in 20-somethings and teens, because it's kind of cool. Okay? And vocally, I mean, that's the first thing I bust my people on is that vocal fry, or now to do it for effect when you're going, ow, something like that. That's different. But when you speak with vocal fry all the time, hitting the gravel like that,
right, and
what you're doing is you're pulling the air support, you're pulling your breath support before you're through speaking. So that's a huge misconception, is to think that you don't have to support your speaking voice all the way out.
Okay.
And the other thing is that you don't need to use your face. You do. Your face matters to how open your throat is, and matters to what tone is going to come out of your face. So that's a big misconception. And the other one is, again, who are you talking to? Who are you supposed to be singing to? Okay. That's a big one too. And another misconception is that your voice has to hurt after a certain point. It doesn't. It flat doesn't. What I tell people is you should be hungry enough to eat a horse, even if you're a vegetarian, but not vocally strained after a long concert.
Okay. Wow, that's really good advice. People use, I guess, cardio exercise for breath control. What other daily exercises do you think help build vocal skills?
Daily exercises that I actually do too, for sure, that I highly recommend, are any kind of core exercises, like sit-ups and push-ups and some weights, to exercise the lats that bring the rib cage open. The lats it's really important to get the back muscles, toned. But what you want to avoid is too many pounds of weight where you overtrain shoulders, because then it's going to create a bulkiness and a tightness around your throat. You also want to avoid grunting when you're doing the weightlifting. Avoid closing your throat and grunting.
Okay.
But core exercises for sure, and also aerobics. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Just out of curiosity, what are some of your musical influences?
Oh Lord, my musical influences began with my father singing old time country music, like we're talking Hank Sr. and all that around my kitchen table to relax from the stress of his job as an air traffic controller. And then he taught us how to play. I remember, teaching me my first chords on guitar. And then my grandparents, who were what they called psalm leaders, and they did that gospel music, that we did, and I got to play that kind of piano when we would visit them back in Mississippi, in the rural part of Mississippi. But the thing is, that's where I began, but it's definitely not where I stayed, because my father moved around. We moved around like service rats because he was an air traffic controller. We moved around to the big cities. So I got influences from calypso in Miami, to R&B in Memphis, and classical music that I learned to play as a violinist and to sing somewhat in college. And I learned to really love great music in any genre to this day. My real big loves have to do with like James Taylor, that magic that he can make, and I love just great grooves like the Stones, and great songs like the Beatles, and Kiri Takanawa's it's gorgeous bell-like classical, and Andre Bocelli is I can listen to them forever. And currently love Sarah Bareilles. I love Faith Hill. And I just love all kinds of different things, like even some hip hop that I really, really love. Matt Carney is one of my students, and I love the stuff. He's not doing hip hop so much anymore, but like some of the Justin Timberlake stuff and that kind of thing. The singers like Gladys Knight, and Seal. Oh my gosh, and Brian McKnight, Take Six. Oh my gosh, I could go on. Do you tell that I love singers and I love music?
That's great. That is great, since you are pretty much a representative of all that stuff. So
yeah,
it's very important that you like so many different genres. Just out of curiosity, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
You sound like my business coach.
Oh.
I had a great experience. I had a great business coach who really kind of had a sucky speaking voice.
Okay.
So we got to barter, and that was wonderful. Okay. But he asked me the same thing. And I think that's real important for all of us, is to be present in the present, but also just be a visionary about the future. And we probably will think about what we may be doing in 5 years and be completely wrong. But, if we're not moving towards something, we're not moving at all. So I think it's real important to do that. In 5 years, I would love to be doing a little more performance with my band. Like, I don't want to perform all the time, because my first job is vocal training and also producing vocals in the studio with different production teams, and sometimes as myself as a production team. But I'd like to be doing more. For a long time I stopped singing myself, my own songs, and I know a lot of us teachers do that. I think it's good for our spirits, and it's also good to keep us remembering what really works in the practical world of on stage, rather than some kind of theory or something that we we get a little removed from the reality of stage. Every time I do a performance, I gain another insight.
Okay.
So that's what I hope I'm doing more of that. And I also want to be doing more vocal seminars in different places.
Okay, awesome. How can our readers and beyond contact you?
Excuse me?
Sorry, how can they keep in contact with you?
People can find me, it's real simple, at judyrodman.com.
Okay, awesome.
You can find me find all my other places from there. My band is Judy Rodman and A&D, 6 Play, the number 6 and the word Play, Judy Rodman and 6 Play. But my main website that kind of everything hubs from is just judyrodman.com, and you can contact me directly from there. I always answer, and I teach all over the world from here in my Nashville office. So I love my work. I love my people.
Okay, that's awesome. Oh, random question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a preference in genres in terms of teaching people how to sing? Is there like a particular song that maybe you use first, like a practice song to get them started?
You know what? I never do that. First thing I have students do is sing some easy song they're wanting to do, and then a very hard song that they can't quite do, so that I see what happens when they have to go for something. Because I don't want to stamp who I am on my students. Right. I want to know who they are, and then I want to enable them to do that as easily and as well as they can, and then go from there. Now, I do use a song as a vocal Valium, as a kind of especially as a warm down after a strenuous lesson, and that is Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Okay.
I use Somewhere Over the Rainbow and have them sing it more in a sort of a light jazzy kind of way, like Jane Monheit would do, or Eva Cassidy would do.
Okay.
And so that kind of relaxes their chords.
Oh wow, that's amazing. Sorry, I almost forgot to ask. What is the most important thing an artist or vocalist can do to protect their voice? Some home remedies type stuff. Okay,
all right. One thing that I find extremely helpful, and you can find anywhere, is to have some pineapple juice that you can use in water, dilute pineapple juice, like 25% pineapple juice and the rest water. Okay. The pineapple has an enzyme in it that makes the throat tissues feel really good and hydrated. Okay. And I mean, that's just an amazing thing. I also personally use this thing called H2O Overdrive, and you can find that at h2overdrive.com. It's a particularly hydrating drink that they use, professional athletes use. I find it extremely helpful for my voice. I don't perform without it. Oh, wow. And I know there are other hydrating drinks too, but those are just a couple. So I think the hydration thing is just a huge thing that you can do to protect your voice. Another thing is to really have enough energy to do all those things. Eat right. Make sure you do eat, even if it's a small protein meal. Yes. Eat before you sing, because if you don't, you'll tend to use the smaller muscles around the neck and throat and shoulders, rather than the big muscles that take more glucose and oxygen. And the big muscles if you use those, then you're protecting the little muscles from strain. Okay. That, and then cayenne pepper on different things. Cayenne pepper, lemon juice, and water works great. Oh wow! Some people put honey with that, but cayenne pepper is a good mucus membrane healer as well. Oh wow! Okay. And so that's a good thing to have with you. And there's all kinds of other odds and ends, like taking a hot bath and breathing, or the shower, and breathing in steam after you've come in from the jet plane or the bus trip. Okay. And you're all dehydrated. You really need to hydrate your tissues, and I find that doing that before performance is extremely important.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. That was wonderful advice. Thank
Thanks.
you so much for taking the time to speak with the Vocalist magazine today. And I wish you nothing but the best in the future, and especially for your 5-year plan. I hope you achieve that.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Great questions, and I wish you and your audience good health and great singing.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much, Judy. That was an awesome interview, and I learned a lot of stuff that I had no idea about.
You know what? That's real. That's thrilling for me because I know you've talked to a lot of people by now, so that makes me very happy that I was able to add something good.
Oh, you definitely did. Because I had no idea about like posture being so important and the certain types of exercises that you do being very important. And also, I knew kind of about the wrong speaking. People say that a lot, but it's nice because you actually you explained it extremely well, so it's completely clear to anyone if you're speaking the wrong way and the right way, and I think that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you got it, girl. Well, thank you, and your magazine rocks. I looked at it; it's just an amazing read.
Thank you.
So very cool.